Today's session is probably one of my favorite sessions to teach. My name is Ken Rupert, and I am your host for Let's Talk About Money. In the first session, I talked about income prioritization, how to structure your income to be the most efficient and most effective use of the financial resources you have. In the second lesson, I talked about debt elimination. That's the area of getting rid of all the commitments within that income prioritization, because you cannot build wealth without first eliminating debt. You cannot build wealth by paying interest to other people. The equation needs to be that people are paying you interest. In today's lesson, I'm talking about really the keystone to every aspect of these strategies that are put together in a package to build wealth. And it's all about goals. You have to set strategic goals within the use of your finances to build wealth. And everybody has probably heard of the SMART goal formula. And this is it's very familiar. Everybody kind of knows the SMART goal. But there's 5 questions within this formula that everybody has to answer, that you have to put on every goal that you make, every strategic goal that you set up, and I'm going to give you a model for doing that, has to answer 5 questions. Is the goal specific? Is the goal measurable? Is the goal attainable? Is the goal relevant? And is the goal time limited? That's what SMART stands for. And that seems a very basic concept. But actually getting a goal to do that without making it extremely wordy is the trick. So when we're talking about a goal that's specific, what we're really talking about is that it's described in detail with a clear present state, desired future state, and time frame. And the model that I use is, as I said, we have to have a present state. The present state is very simply described as the state of your affairs as they pertain to your income, to your current financial accounts, and to the behaviors around spending and debt and stuff like that. You want to list out every aspect of your present state. And the second part of being very specific is you want to move to a desired future state. And the desired future state is, how do you want your financial picture to look after you've achieved your goal? So in this case, you might say, let's just start with a very basic concept that you have $1,000 in an account. And let's say we're going to say, okay, we got $1,000 and we just opened up a T. Rowe Price investment account because we can open that with $1,000. And that $1,000 you want to create, you want to take it up to $5,000. So our present state is we have $1,000 in a brokerage account. Our desired future state is that we want to have $5,000, and that's obviously a difference, and these are your objectives. That's a difference of $4,000. So you're going to need to make this money grow by $4,000, and you're going to have to figure out, and this is the trick, right? The time frame. How do we go from here to here, and how long is it going to take us to get there? Now, there's 3 levels of time frames that I work with. There's the short-term goal, which is a year or less. There's the mid-range goal, which goes 13 months to somewhere around 60 months or 5 years. And then there's the long-term, which is 5 years and beyond. In a case like this, when you're talking about taking $1,000 and turning it into $4,000, it depends on the objectives that you set, and your objectives will be labeled, will show up between your present state and your desired future state. So depending on the objectives you set, that's going to dictate your time frame. If your objective is to do both organic and inorganic growth within this brokerage account to get to $5,000, then your time frame is going to be shortened. Okay? Organic growth is growth that comes from the investment itself. Inorganic growth is financial resources that are placed in the account outside of the investment itself. So that would be, if you put $100 a month into this account, that would be $1,200 a year that you'd be adding to this account. Knowing that we have to hit $4,000, if we go 3 years, we're going to have $3,600 that we're going to add to the account. That means that we only have to grow this account organically by $400. So our time frame in this example is 3 years. So our time frame, we can say, is 3 years. Now, the goal is to go from 1,000 to 5,000. That's your present state to your desired future state. Your objective is to put in $4,000 over the next 3 years and grow your account by $400. So the question you have to ask yourself is, what am I missing from my present state to my desired future state that I need to have in order to accomplish this goal? It's a very specific goal. It starts with a verb, increase my current investment account from $1,000 to $5,000 over the next 3 years by adding $3,600 in inorganic growth and growing the account by $400 through organic growth. It's a very specific goal, and it's attainable. So that's the A. Is it attainable? Well, if you have a decent income and you can put $100 a week or $100 a month aside, it certainly is an attainable goal. Is it relevant to what you're doing? Well, your goal is to build wealth. That's your overall strategic goal, and this is part of the process of building that overall strategy and that overall goal of building wealth. So it's very specific. It's actually very measurable. It's very attainable based on your income. It's relevant to what you're trying to do, and it's definitely time limited. This simple equation right here, present state to desired future state, in a certain amount of time, you have a certain amount of objective you have to hit, and you're going to do that by what am I going to need to do? This is your gap analysis. What am I going to need to do to get from the present state to the desired future state in the time frame of 3 years? You're going to have to use organic, inorganic growth, and you're going to have to determine through the gap analysis how much inorganic growth you're going to use in order to do this. If, for instance, you did not have the ability to put $3,600 away, this time frame would actually increase, because I don't know of anything that can return 400%. So the ability to take $1,000 and make it to $5,000 is probably going to have to be something in the range of a 10-year time frame. So 10 years, now what you're saying is you're basically going to grow inorganically $400 a year, or a combination of inorganic and organic growth in order to get there. This is something that's great for a young child that you're starting to teach finances to. If they can build up $1,000 through cutting grass or doing odd jobs, and you get them in a T. Rowe Price, a low cost brokerage account, then you can start this process, and you can do it 10 years. So let's say you take a 12-year-old who's cutting grass, and they do a lot of work in the summer, and they get $1,000, and you put it in the account. Tell them in 10 years when they're 22 just to work on this account by putting $400 a year in annually and watching the money grow. This is a great object lesson for teaching young children how to do this. So to be specific, as I said, you have to describe it in detail, and this is a very detailed goal. It has to be measurable, and measurability is really, it's simply quantifying the quality of your actions. My actions is to build wealth. I'm putting money aside, and in order to measure that, I want to be able to put some sort of quantifier on it. Now, when you're working with finances, it's a natural mathematical element, and so it becomes very easy. When you're doing more abstract goals, some of the other coaching goals that I have is personal development. That's a little bit harder to quantify, but the key is if you're going to make a goal measurement, you've got to quantify it. You've got to make it a natural mathematical unit in order to quantify your ability to achieve or your progress towards achieving your goal. Attainable says it's more probable than possible. Anything is possible. The question you have to ask yourself is it probable? Is there a higher probability of me being able to achieve my goal by growing my account? And I'm going to put back here the $3,600 because we say that's inorganic growth. And we're going to change this back to a 3-year time frame. Is it attainable? Is it more probable than possible that I can put away $3,600 and grow the investment by $400 in a 3-year time frame? If you have a decent income, that's more probable than possible. If you don't have a decent income, if you're working with a child and you're starting to try to build these techniques and these skills into a child, what's going to end up happening is the child is going to see it's possible, but they're going to have to prove that it's probable. Irrelevant, the action that you're taking towards your ultimate sustainable target or your vision or your object or your mission, this goal is relevant because the overarching goal, the overarching sustainable target is to build wealth. So it's very relevant to what you're doing. If you were saying that you're going to save up $5,000 to buy a car when your child turns 18, if the goal is to buy a car for your child when they turn 18, then it's relevant. But if your goal is to build wealth and you're doing this particular goal to buy a car for your child when they turn 18, this goal is less relevant to your overarching goal of building wealth. So relevancy is based on a higher, more strategic goal, and does the goal that you're setting actually move you towards that target? And of course, we talked about being time limited. As you notice, the present state to the desired future state, there's a gap that exists of $4,000. The objective is to figure out a way how to increase this account by $4,000, and that's going to dictate the time frame based on how you're going to accomplish that. And you're going to figure out how you're going to accomplish that by doing a gap analysis and asking the simple question, what am I lacking today that I need to have tomorrow in order to achieve my goal? So this is a real simple way of setting up a SMART goal. A SMART goal doesn't have to be extremely complicated. All you have to do is have a present state, a desired future state, a gap analysis, figure out what your objective is, and then determine the timeline based upon all of those elements. For the next part of this particular section, I really want to talk about 7 rules that apply to the measurement, the ability to measure and achieve your goals. The first rule is always document your highest financial priority. If your highest financial priority is paying off your house, that's why they have what's called an amortization schedule. An amortization schedule gives you the ability to dictate or determine, I should say, how much goes towards the principal, how much is going towards interest, and if you add additional payments in this schedule, it will help you determine how fast you're paying off your house. So always determine your highest financial priority and then start documenting the steps you're taking. It's simply quantifying the quality of your actions towards achieving your ultimate financial purchase or priority in this situation, what we're talking about. And since our priority in these strategies are to build wealth, that is the ultimate. Define wealth. Well, that's a good place to start. For some people, they're looking at retirement wealth, and they're saying, by the time I retire, in order to make that decision to retire, I want to have $2.8 million in assets. Well, that's the ultimate financial priority, is to build up $2.8 million in assets. But you're going to do that a little bit at a time. Very few people, I should say, can walk out and drop $2.8 million in an investment account and say, there, I'm done. But for most of us who are working an average job and working the 40 hours a week or more in some cases, to build wealth, you have to have strategies. So always document your highest financial priorities and measure against those. The second thing is measurement should be easy. If your measurement is complicated, it's going to cause you to want to stop measuring. The more detail you get in your measurement, the harder it becomes to maintain the willpower, the determination, the connectedness to that measurement. So make it easy. And I find that Excel is an extremely easy program to build a simple spreadsheet to measure the growth. And as I said, if I need to put $3,600 over the course of the next 3 years away, I need a way of documenting that I'm physically doing that. And that's not that hard. You can pretty much pull that right off your paycheck, really. If you have an allotment that goes out of your paycheck right into a brokerage account, it's very easy to measure and document. But always remember that measurement should be easy. The third rule is don't measure against somebody else's baseline. One of the biggest traps we have these days when it comes to finances and material possessions is looking out the front window at our neighbor. You don't ever want to measure your goals against somebody else's achievement. You will always lose in that equation because our perception of their achievement is often not reality. So you want to stay away from measuring against somebody else's baseline. And a baseline is just where you start. A baseline, present state, is very simply the baseline. I'm starting, I have $1,000 in my account, and my goal is to get to $5,000. My goal is not to match what my neighbor's doing, or if my neighbor tells me that they have $15,000 to start with, I'm not trying to match their baseline. I'm simply saying this is my baseline, this is where I'm starting, and this is where I'm going to progress from. The fourth rule is to know what to measure and measure what you know. Know what to measure and measure what you know. When I was young, I had this little game I was playing with my father. And I told him that I was going to catch up to him. He was 28, I believe, when I was born. And I told him, I said, one of these days I'm going to catch up to you. And I did this when I was 13 years old. So at 13, I built this little table. And this little table said, my age is 13, my dad's age is 41. That's a 28-year difference. But I looked at the percentage and I said, that's 34.71%. So I'm 34.71% as old as my father. And I was going to prove to him that I'm going to catch him. And so at age 15, I took another measurement. My dad was 43, I was 15. And now I'm up to 34.88%. So I'm catching him. And statistically, from a percentage point of view, I was catching up to my father. And I wrote it all the way out to the age I was 50. And I said, when I'm 50, you'll be 78. And I'll be 64.1% as old as you. Statistically, from a percentage point of view, I was catching up to him. But if you look at what was really going on, is I was playing with numbers. And one of the things you got to understand about numbers never lie, but liars use numbers. And my goal was to prove to my father that I was catching him in age, but I was using the wrong measurement. So you have to know what to measure. The fact of the matter is my father will always be 28 years older than me. There's no statistical way I can catch him. I can percentage-wise get close to him, but that's the wrong measurement. So you have to know what numbers to measure. And you also have to measure what you know. So the truth of the matter is that my father will always be 28 years older than me. I'll never catch him. But age doesn't necessarily measure things like wisdom or things like knowledge. I was the first in my family to graduate with a 4-year degree. That can't be measured. I mean, it can be measured. I have a degree. I have a 3.49% grade, GPA. But the fact that I was the first one in my family to do that is not something that's going to change the age of my father. So you have to know what to measure, and you have to measure what you know. The fifth rule, be willing to hire a watchdog. Now, I call him a watchdog. I am a board-certified life coach, and what a life coach does is a life coach creates an environment of accountability. And that accountability is huge when you're trying to achieve goals. Call him a watchdog, call him a life coach, call him whatever you want, but be willing to go out and get some professional advice in what you're trying to do. I have worked with a client that's $107,000 in debt. And the idea is they didn't have a plan for how they were going to manage this. And by applying the first two strategies, which I've talked about, the income prioritization and the debt elimination strategy, we're working on it now to try to take that $107,000 and reduce it to a point where we eventually eliminate it, and then that family will be able to start building wealth. The sixth rule when it comes to measurement is lose the mindset of failure. If you set a goal and you miss that goal, our goal was $5,000. But let's say in 3 years I only have $4,700. Did I fail? Not really, because I still made progress. I was still growing towards my goal. And so to say, gee, I don't have $5,000, I failed. Well, there's some variables in there. There's market conditions. Life happens. You might have to stop putting money in for a while. You might have to go a couple months without putting that extra $100 aside to build that account. So life happens, and the market doesn't always cooperate. And so you have to lose that mindset of failure to think that somehow I did not achieve what I set out to achieve in 3 years, and ask the question, but did I make progress? Did I move towards my ultimate goal? And that's why it's critical to always document your highest financial priority. Because in documenting your highest financial priority, you can always say, I am making progress, and therefore I am not a failure. The seventh rule is base your decisions upon facts and not feelings. Feelings are absolutely real. You should never deny your feelings. But I can tell you this, in most cases, feelings are incredibly bad decision makers. The worst time to think about what you need to do in order to provide care to a loved one who is, suffering with Alzheimer's or to a wounded warrior, the last thing you want to do is make a decision based upon what you're feeling. Because what you're feeling can mislead you. But if you got the facts, if you do your research, if you do your study, if you understand the present state, if you clearly dictate or articulate the desired future state, and you have your objectives and you have your time frame and you know what you're missing, if you have that formula laid out, you're going to have the facts that you need in order to make the decisions. You will know when to buy and sell a stock, not based on feelings, but based on facts. You will know when to move in and move out of a mutual fund, not based on a feeling, but based on facts. So that's the 7 rules. Always document your highest financial priority. Measurement should be easy. Don't measure against somebody else's baseline. Know what to measure and measure what you know. Be willing to hire a watchdog. Lose the mindset of failure. And base your decisions upon facts, not feelings. This has been one of the best tools and strategies that I deployed. Every goal I set is set in that simple little picture of present state to my desired future state in a certain amount of time. I understand what I'm missing in the gap analysis and what I need to get to in order to do that. And this is all based upon what objectives I have to hit in order to accomplish that goal. You can do this for 1-year goals, and you can set up 4 or 5 one-year goals that translate. And what happens is, at some point in time, your desired future state becomes your new present state. And then you start the process all over again. And you say, I'm here now. Where do I want to go? And you establish your new desired future state, and you go through this entire process again, the gap analysis in a certain time frame with certain objectives to hit. And you can continue to build a string of success. And even if you don't accomplish the goal, let's say on our financial picture we have only $4,700 here at the end of 3 years. We say, that's okay. That is our new present state. And now we're going to calculate things a little differently. Maybe now I can put $125 away every month. Maybe the market's going to be going in an upswing, and I can count on a little bit more money from that organic growth that I was talking about. You're never a failure when you use this formula and you continue to build every goal you set beyond here using the same formula, where your desired future state becomes your current present state and you move forward. This has been a great time. I hope this lesson has given you a lot to think about. If you want to learn more, you can go on my website. It's kenrupert.com. Click on the coaching tab, send me a message, and we'll communicate and we'll talk more about this if you want to. If you have questions concerning this, like how do you get this started, or maybe you want me to check and see if what you're doing is correct, we can talk about that too. For the Media Center, what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to click on the link below and actually subscribe to this YouTube page. Or you can click on the links above and you can actually follow the Media Center on social media, which is really a great way to continue to get more and more information about this topic as I move forward with giving you strategies that are going to build success in this simple program called Let's Talk About Money.